Hello everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of September the 9th till 15th, 2024. The way I see this upcoming week is as if a week of adaptation, giving us the opportunity to prepare ourselves for the upcoming energies that are knocking at the door, not just symbolically, but sometimes even literally. But in itself, this may be a typical expression of any Virgo season because it is a season when we adapt, when we find solutions, and when we solve certain things that are usually earthly or impact the earthly. Of course, Virgo being an earth sign. But this week it is much more karmic than the average, than the typical Virgo season. This is where we need to, on one hand, wrap up big things. And this is because Mercury this week is gonna finally start covering new territory. It will get out of shadow and will start to progress further into Virgo. So, on one hand, it wraps up, or at least attempts to wrap up the larger Mercury retrograde period in the sense that we draw the conclusions or we put the final details there or we make that choice. Uh, but when I say choice, we must take into consideration that Black Moon Lilith, South Node, and Venus are all in the sign of Libra. So that really adds to the general energy. So choices many times are part of the solution or actually the solution itself. And in order for us to make choices, safe and sound or truthful to who it is that we are choices, we had this past Mercury retrograde period, so all of August basically, to consult Mercury into Leo, so retrograding back into Leo, the heart, what we feel, what our passion says, or basically could be a very uh, good period to examine what's in our heart. Because, especially in this modern lifestyle, day and age, many times the heart is forsaken by us. So very many times we are in that situation where actually other people around, loved ones, or in your personal situation, other people are actually checking in on our hearts. So they are actually, let's say, doing their job as seventh house people, or I don't know, 11th house people, fourth house people, whatever. But it is actually us who have forsaken our checking into our heart, onto our emotion. And when I say emotion, this is not the psychoanalytical water sign. This is the fiery, burning emotion, the passion center. And that's many times very important because if the mind or the watery emotions are the managers of our passion centers, well, it's not going to be very balanced. Why? Well, because for example, if water is running our passion center, then it might never ever get to that ignition moment when the initiation or whatever, saying yes or no, or you know what I mean, happens. It will all just be a big contemplation. And if other elements run our passion centers, it can get very easily out of control, if you know what I mean. Sometimes love stopped. Love went away because that is the nature of sometimes, you know, there is no fault, there is no mistake, there is no blame. Love is of this nature. She's free. She comes when she wants, but this also means she goes when she wants. and love might might choose to stay for some souls an entire incarnation, and for others way beyond. For other cases, it is just a few years, just a nodal cycle, or just a Jupiter, whatever, just a larger cycle. But that is also, how should I say, dare I say, just as valuable as a multi-incarnation kind of soul connection, because we do live in a day and age where many incarnate, and this is not just theory and empty philosophy. Just look at your own life and see how you were different people in an incarnation. That you might say, well, that's not a big deal because people change, right? Yes, absolutely. But if you go back even just 100 years, this, how should I say, being more than one personality, but not in a disorder way, in a karmic context way, as in, for example, I'm a certain type of person and I do have a certain type of personality, for example, in my career, but I might be totally different in my intimate sphere. This is already where they're running together and you're managing two. I don't necessarily want to say two egos, but two different projections of the ego. Modern life, right? Not totally normal. Everyone does it, but this didn't wasn't as normal in the past. As I said earlier, even if we just go back 100 years, a person had to hold down fixed signs, right? Fixed energy. A person had to hold down a very steady, stable identity, even ego. Evolution, yes, absolutely, maturization and all of that. But in this modern time, sometimes it's not evolution, it's simply death and rebirth. And you might say that philosophically, this is part of the human spiritual experience. Absolutely. But in the past, again, I'm so sorry to repeat myself, but merely if we just go back 100 years, and the reason I'm repeating this, that is a blink of an eye, really, from an astrological perspective. That's just a blink, really a blink of an eye. It wasn't this literal, this drastic. In the past, it really used to be symbolic. Now it's, and this is where we can even feel it in our own journeys. Many times it's literal. You really are a different person after an ego death, let's say. It's not where you upgrade, tuned up this and that a little bit and tuned down the other. This is where you changed almost like radically differently. Hence, this isn't a real disorder or anything wrong. Multiple incarnations packed into one lifetime. So if the times allow a being, a person, let's say, to evolve in a quantum way, well, no problem at all, because the energies, especially the inner energies, adapt to this. So this is why it's really, really important to know that many times we are multitasking in a deeply karmic way and we don't even know it. We feel so tired, so fatigued. I have no energy. And you go to doctors and even healers, even alternative medicine, whatever, and they just cannot put their fingers on why this drastically. Maybe if you look back at your life, how many incarnations were packed into your past just this life's past. Because sometimes that tells the story that you burned yourself out. For example, people who have chosen service paths, like, for example, social worker or nurse or someone who really has to provide a lot of care and compassion and maturity and, in a certain way, altruism each and every day. Well, that part of their identity burns out. That's like a supernova star, like a red hypergiant. It lasts for a blink of an eye compared to stars like our sun, medium stars. So that's how, and that part of you retired, and many times it will never come back in this incarnation because you burned it out. It was consumed already. And this period and this Mercury retrograde, especially, because this is where the idea started from, really, really opens our eyes to this fact of what have we done within our hearts. How many, let's say, personas have we burned out already? And maybe yet a new one is imminently gonna be reborn. Just that this is so unusual to us because it may feel like we are living in a little bit of a schizophrenic reality because I am almost literally being reborn. The me, the identity. And along with that, many times, my preferences, my value system, and what I can do. Because I have seen cases myself where after the so-called ego death or reinvention, or you know what I mean, after this episode, the person came with new skills that they never had before. And skills they had before became dormant. Like, this is a bit shocking in a most positive and surprising way, of course, but still. So, long story short, this Mercury retrograde that Mercury ultimately will wrap up this week may have even deep reflections of what I said earlier about how many people and personalities we already were in this incarnation, and that many times losing something um, like very, very almost integral to your structure in the more modern times doesn't have to mean any doom and gloom, whatever, because our inner beings are really learning to adapt to this. So that which maybe even a few years ago, before 2020, used to really shut down a person and send them into like 6 years of therapy. Right now, because of the quantum energies, that doesn't have to. Saturn and Pisces, timing and time, especially inner time Pisces, is not the same anymore. So, quantum healings, in the sense that somehow it accelerates so rapidly that the new self comes online so quickly that you don't need that, I don't know, many months of therapy. So this is also something that we're just starting to experience. And so this week, even in a deep spiritual sense, is going to be an eye-opener. Why? Because we get one of the better uh, parts of the energy of the grand sextile that I have and many other astrologers have been speaking about in the past horoscopes. So let me just highlight that. Uranus, Uranus by now retrograde, Pluto, of course, also retrograde. So this means there's a trine between them because both of these planets converse from Earth signs remember, Pluto is back at 29 degree of Capricorn. And there is Neptune. And Neptune holds a sextile at 28 degrees of Pisces, both with Pluto, both with Uranus. And in this week, this configuration is quite, how should I say, if it's most efficient, if that makes sense, from a psychological, alchemical, and this doesn't necessarily resume to just pure psychology or spirituality, because Pluto and Uranus are in earth signs, so this can be profoundly everyday normality and routine and life altering. So this is where this sextile really gives us the opportunity to catalyze very, very intensely, to add a touch of quantum to any processes that might be going on within our higher selves, Pluto and Aquarius, right? So this Pluto, well, the planet, of symbolically death. What does that mean? For anything that we need to eliminate, and again, I have to point to the fact that what we're eliminating is something that used to be an integral part of our life structure or inner structure or whatever, at least from 2008 when Pluto entered Capricorn, but this can also represent all of our lives, because Pluto did not touch Capricorn in our incarnation, only starting from 2008. So that's when everything starts to change. So again, this can really represent the power to catalyze a massive change in your life, either an ending, elimination, but Pluto is also planet of rebirth, the phoenix. So also to under transformed conditions, right? Build something, start the new. This energy, what we're experiencing all through this autumn, so this isn't just specific to this week or not even specific just to September. The best way to understand it and visualize it is really the tarot. The tower. The tower moment, everyone kind of understands the tower moment. Upheaval, when reality is crashing down, when life really, really shakes us to the core and something massive ends, like a career, marriage, we lose someone, very, very, etc., etc. So that energy has been ongoing from 2020 until this present moment, and even beyond, before 2020, because the the conjunction of Saturn, Pluto, and other planets in 2020 was in a way premeditated, if I can use this word, by aspects that we had all through 2018, 2019. So we were prepared even before 2020. So what I want to say with this is that it really, really, really helps us to catalyze whatever is taking place in this sense in our lives. So the tower, we understand that, and the tower is followed by the star card, and that is renewed hope. That is when life, new beginning, new hope, new energies, a new dream, a new love, a new everything, a new world basically rises from the ruins of the tower. And that part of the energy may be when Pluto starts going direct and re-enters Aquarius, because the star card is a representative of the sign of Aquarius, hopes and dreams, of course. So this is basically what is happening all through this autumn. So it's not an easy energy, but it is full of hope, truly full of hope. So let us begin the horoscope so we understand that this grand sextile stays with us for a good couple of weeks from now, and it really, really helps us to alchemize, to manifest, to use the quantum. And this energy helps every archetype. Because many times an astrological configuration is a big power boost for certain archetypes and are just a minor little help or whatever for other archetypes. But this one is almost where the divine planned it in such a way where there is a little bit for everyone. Neptune, the dreamer, mystic, artist, the psychologist, that archetype basically, who dwells in emotion, the introvert, the shy, even the victim, absolutely, the magician, the alchemist. Okay, but then there is Uranus, the revolutionary, the futuristic, the Star Trek person, so to speak, the artificial intelligence person, the extraterrestrial, the new, the next, the let's change the world, hopes and dreams worth fighting for, the activist, Uranus. And technology. So perhaps this Uranus will add a non-human element to it. For example, artificial intelligence. And then there is Pluto and Capricorn. The Pluto and Capricorn, let us understand it as the average citizen who kind of relies upon centralized power structure, Capricorn, government or big corporation, or actually how our civilization is organized, our way of organization, and our hierarchical ladder, that is Capricorn. So in that sense, all of us are just, how should I say, citizens. So just the citizen in a way benefits as well. And just the citizen is very, very important because the power of the masses has to change and transform. Pluto in Aquarius. Right now, okay, it's finishing his job in Capricorn, but in the next 20 years, that's the theme. So just the citizen is the most important component here. Just the average person. This is where a shift of paradigm. Reality is not about kings, VIPs, stars, the eminent, the elite, the top anymore. No, 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 no. In this cycle, and I'm speaking about the big, big cycle, the next 200 years, is where they become, now don't understand it in the literal way, servants, as in a way in service, stripped down from some of their, symbolically speaking, jewels, symbol of their power. And all of this goes to just the citizen, just the person, everyone basically, the grain of sand on the beach, every grain of sand. This is where the energy is transferred back to the individual, but in the sense where the individual is interconnected with everyone. So this, in the long run, will greatly harmonize Capricorn. But we are in the deconstruction of the old phase still. But this is where very intense for the last time, because this is the last Pluto retrograde where it's going to be in Capricorn. So this is truly the last Plutonian moment. So it's very, very intense, dramatic, scary, frightening, and big, big, mind-blowing changes are still yet to happen all around the world. But that's one thing. This grand sextile is exactly the divine gift for us to have power over it. And this is where, even if your hands, feet are tied blindfold on your eyes, even if all your senses are tied down and you cannot do anything, this grand sextile still gives you the power of dream or simply divine plea. Ask the divine, because you're a living being as well. You're divine, right? And that's it. So this holds very, very great power, both collectively and individually. So we must really, really be aware of this and choose to be our most elevated selves in spirit. I need to say in spirit because not necessarily in ego, because the ego. And also, we begin the week with a very hard aspect for the ego, but that's good because it's humbling. Sun opposing Saturn. So, this is where it's not really for the ego, it's much more for the soul. Saturn in the sign of Pisces, our most moral selves, our most pure selves in soul. I must repeat, because the ego is meant to live in the physical, human, natural world. Sadly, in this day and age, I cannot even say natural. But anyway, that's a total different discussion that I don't want to get into. So, the ego has its own environment, but this aspect is really about the soul. But the ego is being prepared, opposition to Saturn, because at the very end of Virgo season, it will oppose Neptune. And that's when whatever we are doing with this grand sextile, that's when it will integrate into the ego and it will become part of us. So again, we must be our highest versions right now. That doesn't mean to live in delusion and toxic positivity. No, we just need to look at our situations through a philosophical lens and choosing the highest version. Like, let me give you the simplest example. I'm not a victim, I'm a survivor. You know, there's a huge difference in the eyes of the divine between the two. And it can be this very same person, very same situation, the past, everything the same, but how the person receives it. Either I'm the victim, oh my goodness, I'm never gonna recover, I don't even wanna recover, or I'm a survival. This could not stop me, and my scars mean nothing in the long run because I'm gonna embrace life. As I said, there's a massive difference between the two. And this week, and also this Mercury retrograde that is being racked up, is the big teacher how to do this practically, how to switch our attention, actually not sorry, because Virgo, it begins with the attention. For the attention to detect when I'm so sorry to use this, bullshitting ourselves, when we're deceiving ourselves. Oh, I'm not good enough, and oh, I'm so frustrated. When will she be mine? When will he text me? Uh, Patience. You know what I mean? So when we catch ourselves trying to be the lowest version, we really, really need to use this, again, grand sextile to alchemize it. I'm surviving, or to use my previous example, he didn't text me back yet. Well, that's absolutely fine because you have divine protection. A time waster shouldn't even text you back. So, you know what I mean? And then maybe you don't feel all that bad anymore and lonely and you don't even want him. And you know what I mean? So, this is very clear. Now, let's move to the 12th, where Mercury, as I said, is finally starting to wrap up its retrograde. Sorry, I'm just here. He is, at 4 degrees of Virgo, and after it will start covering new ground. So this is a really, really good energy, but it's quite a blessed, if I'm allowed to use this term, wrap up of the Mercury retrograde period, because there is a perfected sextile between Mercury and Mars, and that is so, 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 so good. Oh, sorry, that's the sun. So Mercury and Mars, 4 degrees of their signs each. Mars in Cancer gives the willingness to protect, to nurture, to be there, to be cautious, to do the right thing, to think about not just myself, but other people, my community, my family, my loved ones. So Mars in Cancer, it's a sextile, right? Brings the best of its best. Mercury in the sign of Virgo, practicality, intelligence, benevolent intelligence, willingness to solve the problem by thinking and analyzing, and the average Virgo expression. And when these two planets speak in a sextile, well, that's really, really positive. On one hand, the determination, the motivation, even self-discipline, self-containment, whatever it is that you need from this Mars, the energy, the motivation to do it. And then Mercury, communication, the practical or the idea, mind, anything that has to do with managing time and resources. Mercury advantages you. So this is like a big success. This is really good for, as I said, communication, convincing someone of something very, very important. So this is not just the typical persuasion where, oh, this is where it's something very important. Let me give you an example. Convincing your family to lend you a huge sum of money. Mars in Cancer, the help of the family, Mercury and Virgo, you, this, as in you give them the list of why it is important, and it's logical, rational, rooted in true need. So of course you get it. It's also really good for anything that has to do with lucrative purposes, job. Now, I don't necessarily want to say job interview here, but rather performing really, really well at work over I yeah, actually, yeah, overperforming, because at many companies and workplaces that guarantees you the employee of the month or the rewards or whatever. So yeah, going above and beyond Call of Duty really rewards you in this period. So nice gestures, a smile, especially if you're in any customer or customer service oriented role. Niceness and care, just that you choose to care, will get you a long way. So any type of service that you offer, or job, or livelihood, being extra nice or being really, really committed to the work or solving the problem or whatever, gets you a very long way this week. So I highly encourage that very, very much. This energy is also good for healing. But when I say healing, it is the type of healing where you have to go to therapy, as in not just one-time visit. A treatment, for example, or like physio, multiple sessions, or Mars gives you the patience, and this is where Mars in Cancer, maybe the motivation is here is family or and someone who loves you and says, look, go and get well, because you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for all your loved ones. So then the person says, oh, okay, Mercury, but remember, Mercury is on the 12th, still wrapping up its retrograde. So I'll do it. I'll find the money. I'll find the time. I'll find the whatever it is needed, and they'll go and do it. So it's really, really good for therapy, starting therapy, especially because Cancer cardinal energy. And Mars, even though it's not very powerful there, for important initiations that were really thought through, is good, is really good. And Venus being in the sign of Libra, indirectly, it is also a complementary energy, because let's say Venus in Libra, you are seeing clarity and truth in certain decisions. And when you have a decision with clarity, then Mars, of course, it's easy for Mars to go and do it. And then Mercury, you have understanding, you have connections, all of that helps, and you solve a big problem, or you made the decision and now you're executing it. So in this sense, it's really, really good energy. But of course, all of this is not going to be as easy as I'm making it out, even with the grand sextile, even with the Mars Mercury sextile, and even with the Venus and Jupiter trine, which I'm going to be speaking about in a sec, because that's also really, really beautiful. And why? We're just before a very intense, emotionally, psychologically, and even spiritually intense Pisces partial lunar eclipse, supermoon. So we are already feeling that. That is where it's in the background. It feels like when you're in a boat and it has a hole in it, but the hole is quite small. Slowly and surely the boat will still fill up with water, just that you have a lot of time. This is how it's going to feel like. The water of the eclipse, the energies are already through a small hole coming into both our lives. It's not life threatening, but we feel it in our bones that karma or intense emotion or tears or healing or release or miracles, whatever, is very fast approaching. Especially that this is a full moon, right? So a lunar eclipse unfolds within usually a month. In the worst case scenario, 3 months after the date it happens. But usually it's around that week, usually. So especially because it's emotion, it flows quickly, it flows where it wants to flow. Nothing can contain it. So keep in mind that, okay, this is really action oriented, decision oriented, problem solution oriented. It motivates us, it gives us help, etc., etc. But in the background, the eclipse is knocking at the door. So let us move on, because I'm gonna go on the 13th now. Here you can see that Venus is already starting to perfect its trine with Jupiter. Sorry, the trine perfecting on the 15th, but it's already operational. So this is really, really, really good. Especially that the moon will make it a grand trine later on, when after it gets into the sign of Aquarius. That's really, really good. Relationships, contracts, decision making, help from society, friends, acquaintances, simply other people, getting help from a collective or a group of people who you are connected to philosophically. Oh, better give an example. You are part of the book club. That's what I mean. You're part of that, but in a way philosophically, because you have the same thought processes and aspirations, Aquarius, 11th house stuff. Or you are part of the liberal, I don't know what kind of movement, same philosophy, groups of people, so help can come from there. Um, Jupiter in the sign of Gemini, this can also be ideas, words, uh, anything that has to do with communication, planning, the power of intelligence. Venus in the sign of Libra, she is at home, she loves being there, and more importantly, she's also stepped into what astrologers call via combusta. So the path of fire. This is where relationships are most karmic. This is where relationship dynamics, especially changes, discussions, confrontations, blah, blah, fire, fire. When things get heated, start unfolding. And Venus is the ruler of this segment of Libra, because this segment is from 15 degree of Libra to 15 degree of Scorpio. So Venus is here in her own ruler sign of Libra. Very, very powerful, very relevant. Now, this grand trine, it can be potentially a step towards peace, a step towards diplomatic understanding, putting down a deal, even if just partially. Okay, this isn't a massively big aspect, as in to change history, but it can sure help quite a lot. It really, really helps. This is really a catalyst for good. Now, I know it's a trine, but with Jupiter not very comfortable with Gemini, it might also have a tiny bit of dark side, especially that the moon in Aquarius, many times that represents emotional futility. When we are fueling something totally futile with strong emotion, for example, a useless dream, a crush, in the sense that it's only in 11th house, not 5th house, not 7th house, not 8th house, just an actor, or I don't know, someone who we don't even know personally. Futility in that sense. Or like the 7 of Swords in tarot. Jupiter expands this. Venus in Libra, well, she allows philosophy. She loves that kind of futility. She's all about the platonic stuff, right? So we must make sure that this energy doesn't make us waste emotion or thought or time, or Jupiter empty promises. Because when some people are in a really, really good mood, it brings out the, how should I say, a bit more than the best of them, unrealistic best of them. And they make, not that they're liars or deceivers, but caught in that state, they make a lot of empty promises and myths, and you know what I mean. So let that this energy can also play out like that. In which case, let us take everything with a pinch of salt. If it's a contract and signed, Venus and Libra, maybe then we can believe it. But like, let's say that someone promises us something really, really big, like I don't know, and if they actually give it, well, then we were blessed by this trine. but until they give it, let's not, believe it really, even if it's not deception or lie, even if it's just this getting carried away by the spirit of Jupiter, the generosity. But other than that, this trine is really good for so very many different things. Friendships, flirt, connection, making key decisions in marriages, relationships. Because Pluto, freshly retrograded back into Capricorn, will square this Venus very, very soon. So that is a very strong terminal or permanent transformation energy. But before that plays out, on one hand, we have this trine, Jupiter Venus trine that prepares us. As I said, it brings out the very, very best of us, making us our most diplomatic, kind, peaceful, self-contained, non-vengeful, non-toxic self by the time we get to the square. So at the time of the square, maybe we can be diplomatic enough, altruistic enough, whatever the situation, to have power over however the relationship dynamics are going to change by that square. May it be a makeup or a breakup or a whatever. And also, very soon, Sun and Uranus are also gonna speak in a trine, which is also a wonderful energy because that can offer, how should I say, a practical form to any truth that is within us. So apply this energy in your personal situation. It can really, really lead to wonderful and practical improvisations, because many times the solution to a big problem is not in the textbook. It is totally outside of textbook. And this aspect is also good for dropping certain judgments. Let me give you an example. There are very many people who consider that blindly obeying the law makes them a good being. I didn't say it makes them a good citizen, because maybe it does. But if the laws that you're blindly obeying are unfair and corrupt, then you're not doing all that much, right? Then you're not using your Virgo energies in the correct way, because the Virgo energies should catch on to the fact that, well, I'm always trying my best, but if I actually obey this law, which to me says, which to me, sorry, seems so unfair and whatever you want, then obeying it, does that make me what? Does that make me silly? Does that make me naive? Or does that make me just a sheep? But neither do I want to be a rebel. You see what I mean? Sometimes blind obedience is the road to hell. Or put this in any Mercurial / Virgo context. At work, obeying something that is not okay does not make you a good employee anymore. If, let's say, your manager starts abusing your willingness to stay after the schedule, if this becomes a norm and you don't get even a smile for it, doing this does not make you a good worker anymore. It just makes you stay in a certain kind of codependency and having to look at what traumas you might have work-wise. So you get what I mean. Uranus with the sun trine not just awakens us to the truth in these ways that I said in the previous examples, but also gives the solution, also gives the alternative, the improvisation. Because going back to my example, if you don't have to break the rules, you don't have to go against the rules if you don't agree with them, because there's always certain para-legal solutions which don't break the rules, but neither do they make you have to obey them. So there's always a solution to everything. Hence, this Uranus Sun trine that is not going to be this week, but the week that follows. But these two planets towards the very end of the week are already gonna start growing and growing in their conversation, harmonious conversation. So let us move finally to the 15th, where you can see Venus trine Jupiter perfecting, and the sun is at 23 degree of Virgo. So the trine with Uranus is slowly but surely coming online. Really, really, really good energy. And also on the 15th, you can see that the moon is already in the sign of Aquarius. So it is starting to form the grand trine with Venus and Jupiter. So again, this week truly has a lot of help, energetic, inner, or mental, or in any way, shape, and form. It does have a lot of help. So we need to seize these opportunities and make the very, very best of them, because it also prepares us for the upcoming eclipse, which might be a small moment of pause because something floods the emotion. Tears of joy, tears of forgiveness, tears of sadness, tears of release, tears of frustration. There might be tears, and there might be a big karmic wrap up, because ultimately that's the nature of this energy, because the eclipse will could be conjunct Neptune, and the eclipse will sextile Saturn. Sorry, Uranus is what I wanted to say. The moon will sextile Uranus. So the sun will trine it on the 17th of September. So that's karmic. That is also truth oriented. That changes the tone, changes the value, that rearranges something in life or within ourselves, emotionally, psychologically speaking. So, yes, this week is definitely a preparation in this sense. So, thank you everyone for listening. I really hope that this helped you. And I'm gonna have a separate video out about the eclipse soon. So, until next time, bye for now.